Hello and welcome. So good to have you with us today. Today we are going to get back into the swing of things. I've taken about a month off to kind of regroup, take a bit of a rest, figure out, what's going to happen for the next year. I always think of September as the second new year of the year. Do you do that too? It's kind of another time to regroup and get pointed in a direction. And so today we are going to do the first lesson in iridology, Introduction to Iridology. And for those of you who are with me, this is some of the content of the very first lesson in our 20 lesson course that is starting in September. And so this is a little taste of the very basic, most foundational information that you will get in that course. Of course, that course is going to take you a lot deeper and so then what we can possibly do today, because it is 40 hours and there's lots of time for mentoring in there. So here we are recognizing the fact that there are many different kinds of iridology out there. There are many different iridology philosophies. And our focus today here, and if you're new to me, this is going to be new. If you've been with me for a while, this will resonate with you because you know what I do, but we are going to focus on constitutional iridology because that is the most up-to-date, scientifically validated form of iridology there is, right? And I know that because I was a Jensenian iridologist for many years and jumped ship, changed course because it wasn't working for me. I am Judith Cobb. I am a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, certified iridologist, and certified comprehensive iridology instructor. And those certifications, my most recent ones are through IPA. I got into holistic healing 4 decades ago because I had some health problems. And it seemed that no matter what tests the doctors ran, they couldn't rule anything out. They couldn't rule anything in. It was just very simply that I needed to go back for more tests and more tests and more. And I finally got that up. I got that up. They were not getting me any closer to where I wanted to go. They weren't giving me information that was being helpful. And I'm not saying all doctors are bad. I'm not saying all doctors are that doctors should be able to find every answer. It was just very frustrating and I couldn't do that. And that was when I actually got introduced to holistic healing. Good morning, Wilmela. It's good to see you. Thanks for being there with us from the Philippines in our Facebook Live. And so that was why I got into it. And I've never looked back. It's something that has become such a part of me. The funny thing is, it was my husband who got me started in it when we were dating. We weren't even married yet. And it resonated. It resonated with me. I'd been interested in nutrition. Even as a teenager, I was interested in nutrition. I was interested in fitness. I was interested in health. I was interested in midwifery as a teenager. And so as I started learning about herbs and nutrition and iridology and biokinesiology and things like that, it just worked for me. So I did go to university to study education, decided after 3 years, I had enough credits to graduate, but not enough in any one particular educational discipline to actually graduate. And that was when I decided it wasn't for me and that I really wanted to work with natural healing. And I wanted to use my talents as a teacher to teach holistic practitioners as well. I've been in the industry for 4 decades. I've written many books over the years, and these books have been self-published and self-distributed, so they're not on Amazon, they're not anywhere like that. Most of them are out of print right now. They're waiting for rewrites. Pregnancy Naturally was one of them, the Herbal Birth Kit Handbook, Healthy Kids Naturally, The Essential Guide to Nature's Sunshine Products, Biokinesiology and Color Therapy Level 1 and 2, and my most recent book, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Textbook. That is a textbook that is available digitally only to students who are enrolled in my program. Rather than making you buy an expensive textbook written by some other author, I've written the book, and I've kept it digital because as research comes out, as we learn more and more and more, I upgrade my textbook. And then my students that have already taken the class get access to the latest version of the textbook. So it's a way to keep up. I mean, I've got books that are 40, 50 years old, that were published obviously well before I started practicing. I've got books that were published just a few years ago, and some of the information is already out of date, right? And so it's really important for us to always be up to date and current. I've also created and taught many courses. Herbology Level 1, which was 20 hours of training meant for in-home family use. The people who took that class, we used to teach this face-to-face here in Calgary. We'd have a wait list for the class. My coordinator would ask, can we run a second section? Do you have another night you can give me? And we often would. There was always a wait list. When students finished that first 20 hours, at least 50% of them said, is there more? So we created a 16-hour more advanced training in how to use commercially prepared and available products. I also designed and taught the Biokinesiology and Color Therapies Level 1 and 2 courses. For several years, I was a certified prenatal or antenatal educator with ICEA. So that was a lot of fun, designing and teaching prenatal classes to expecting couples. That was so much fun. And my most recent course creation is the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System. This is an IPA-approved curriculum that includes all of the IPA Level 1 and Level 2 course material, and it prepares you for certification with IPA if you so choose. So stay with me till the end of today's workshop, and I'll give you just a little more information about the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course that is starting in September. I am also a professional member of the Canadian Association of Holistic Nutritional Professionals, the Canadian Association of Natural Nutritional Professionals, and the Alberta Herbalists Association. I've got nutrition credentials from several different schools, and I've got herbal credentials from several different schools as well. All right. Are you ready to learn some iridology now? And I would love it if you would say hello, regardless of which platform you're with me on. It's always good to know who I'm with, to share some positive energy and some love back and forth. So I want to ask 5 questions of you today. And Wilmella is saying she does not have sound. Thank you for letting me know that. Let me see here. I'm not sure why you don't have sound. Let me go to a different microphone. Could it be that maybe it's a setting on your end of things? Perhaps. I'm just looking for my cable for my extra microphone. Let's see if this changes it up for you. Let me just... Okay, let's see. Is that better? Do you have sound, Wilmella? Is that giving you audio? And hopefully it is. Those of you with me on Facebook, how's your audio? Are you getting audio here? Facebook, do you have audio? And I'm just going to double check my settings one more time again to make sure I'm on the right camera. I'm on the... Okay. All right. You've got it now? Yes. Okay, good. I'm glad you've got audio. This is good. Unless you're really good at reading lips, and I know, Wilmella, that means that you're probably reading lips in English, which may not be your first language. So I'm glad you've got audio. Good job. Good job. Okay, so we're going to answer these questions. What is iridology? Where did it come from? Why does it work? What can it teach us? And how should it be used? If you've got any other questions about iridology in general that you would like me to answer for you today, please type them into your chat box or your comments box, depending on which platform you are with me on today. And as we get ready to launch this, actually, let's just launch into this. Let's stop diddling around. Let's get into it. What is iridology? Okay, so if you're brand new to iridology, this will be a new insight for you. If you've been around iridology for a while, you already know the answer, right? So iridology is the study of the colored part of the iris. For those of you who might be new to this, it is iridology because it is the iris of the eye. It is not iridology because it's not an iris. Okay, it's iridology. Constitutional iridology recognizes that certain iris traits, so certain markings we see, certain colors, the way things appear in the iris, suggest a short list of specific health predispositions. We know that the iris is inherited. And so what we're seeing in there has come down from the past 4 generations. It's what's been passed down genetically. This gives us information about how a person is put together and where their strengths and weaknesses are. We cannot change the iris by doing cleanses or by doing fasts or by taking special supplements. This is, again, a genetic framework. It provides us with understanding to help us have a deeper insight into our clients' health and to their emotional and personality tendencies as well. Modern iridologists often also have a background in sclerology, and we do include sclerology in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. Sclerology is looking at the white of the eye. When we are looking at the blood vessels, these are very, very dynamic. And you may have noticed this, if you have a good hard cry, your eyes will be bloodshot for a while. They're irritated, the blood vessels are dilated, and things just look a little sore. As things calm down and the redness goes away, the blood vessels are able to constrict back down. What we know is that when we get blood vessels that are enlarged for a longer period of time, it points us towards things that are going on in the body right now. Sometimes if we see these early enough, it'll be a preclinical situation where the client has no idea there's a problem brewing. If that marking has been around for a while, then they may be aware that there is a problem. When we correlate what we see here to what we see in the iris, to what our client's symptoms are, to what their family and personal history are, we get an even clearer image of what direction we need to work. None of this is going to give us a disease name. All of it is going to give us information for how to work with our client. Is that making sense? Does that work for you? Iridology came from millennia of research, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of research, and being used in different places around the world. So we know that there are records of it having been used in ancient Egypt, India, China, and Greece. We also know that science evolves, right? Science is not really about finding answers. It's mostly about asking questions. It's about creating an understanding. I want you to think about this for a moment. We used to think the earth was flat. Everybody thought the earth was flat. And as those ships sailed over the horizon and they disappeared over the edge, but then they came back again, it was able to be figured out that the earth is actually round. The same is true with iridology, in that a lot of people are hanging on to old ideas and not moving forward with the research. And that's really holding iridology back in very serious ways. As we look at the history of iridology, and this is one of the things that holds us back, is this exact story. The story is told of Ignaz von Petschle, who became a medical doctor in Hungary. As an 11-year-old boy, he found or trapped or somehow caught an owl or a hawk or some other kind of bird of prey. I mean, the story is pretty non-distinct. And somehow this bird had a broken wing or leg. We don't know if it got broken in the catching or the trapping or whatever, but Ignatz was able to capture this bird, saw that the bird had apparently a black line in the iris. And this got Ignatz to be curious, because as he kept this bird in captivity, nurtured it back to health, he noticed this black line disappeared. As we look at this story, there's a lot of questions like, how did he get the wild bird to sit still, to actually see its eyes? How did he even capture this wild bird? He's an 11-year-old boy, my goodness. We also need to remember that the structure of an animal iris is very different from the structure of a human iris. And in order for there to have been a black line in this bird's iris, the iris would have had to have been cut, literally cut. And the likelihood that that would have healed up is, well, we don't know. Wouldn't you think that from this, that this would have been replicated? Nobody else has ever replicated this. We have all of these wild bird sanctuaries where birds that have been injured are taken in to be worked on by veterinarians and veterinary techs. Don't you think they would have noticed the same thing? And I wonder, why hasn't this story been replicated? What we love about this story is that whatever Ignatz saw or thought he saw, it spurred him on to wonder if correlations could be made from human irides. And that got him studying and working with it. So we are grateful to him that he actually was able to begin doing the research that has led us forward. That was the foundation of modern research. Then we have Pastor Niels Liljeqvist. He was able to ascertain that when we've got an eye structure where the fiber is very densely packed, very tightly woven, this correlates to a very resilient body. When we have a fiber structure that is a little gappier with separations in the fiber, this correlates to an overall resiliency and resistance to disease that is a little bit lower. It doesn't mean that this person can't experience good health, because they can if they do the right kinds of things on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that this person is going to always experience good health, because they just might not. If they are doing all the bad things they can break their health down. The person on the left of your screen, their body will respond very quickly and easily to positive changes. The person on the right, it's going to take a little longer, going to take a little more work. Pastor Emanuel Felke, for whom there is an institute named in Germany, the Felke Institute, he mapped the iris. So we've got these first three men all creating iris maps, but they're doing it by hand. They're looking at people's eyes. They're drawing pictures, little colored pictures of the people's eyes, writing down their story, getting several of these stories side by side, and they're doing this individually. They're not collaborating. They're gathering all of these case histories on their own, and then they're correlating, this person had these symptoms and there's a marking here. This person had these symptoms and there's a marking here. And from that, they're creating their own maps. The interesting thing is how similar, like nearly identical, their maps were without collaboration. Then we have Rudolf Schnabel. He was also in Germany, and he was one of the first ones to research pigment, so extra colors in the eye, and pupil tonus, so the size and the shape of the pupil. Notice this pupil on the right of your screen is not actually round. So he was the first one to also use a microscope to examine the iris. That's pretty exciting, pretty exciting. Rudolf Schnabel went on to say this: "It was no easy task, and those who believe or would like to believe that handling iridoscopy, which we now call iridology, can be learned within a few weeks or even days are mistaken and do a disservice to a good cause." This is one of the reasons I teach my course the way I do. You will find many intensive courses where it's 2 or 3 intensive days to cover level 1 iridology and 2 or 3 intensive days to cover level 2 iridology. And as if you can actually master it in that length of time, it's just not doable, not doable. Then we have Joseph Unger. Joseph Unger was a student of Schnabel's, which is very cool. Joseph knew that students were reading books and accepting the printed word about iridology before adequate research was completed. So while he was also doing research, he refused to publish anything until it had been analyzed and reviewed by a board of his professional peers. I think that shows such a high level of integrity to say, this is what I found, but I want to have it reviewed. I want to make sure that what I'm seeing is accurate and that other people are seeing it as well. Then we have Joseph Deck, who is the father of modern constitutional iridology. He was a dedicated iridology researcher, and he pioneered iridology photography. He was also an instructor, and we're going to talk about Joseph Deck just a little bit more in a moment. We also have Theodor Krieger in Germany. All of this research was coming out of Germany. They were so far ahead of their time. I hope, he said, that a later generation will succeed in establishing a single uniform system. In spite of zealous efforts, these have so far not succeeded. And this is a real concern, that there are so many forms of physical iridology. Many of them have not been updated. They're using old information. And so it was Krieger's dream that everyone would get on board with the latest research. He felt iridology was the #1 best assessment tool, but that it should be used with things like urine analysis, hand assessments, fingernail diagnosis, tongue assessments, and feces assessments. He was also a student of Unger, Deck, and Schnabel, so he's getting information from 3 other researchers. Brilliant man, absolutely brilliant man. Then we have Bernard Jensen on the right here. Bernard Jensen, we love Bernard Jensen, even though his style of iridology has been shown to be outdated and not up to speed with what we know now. He single-handedly kept iridology alive during the Cold War. When there was no more research coming out of Europe, he kept iridology alive in North America. So we owe him a huge debt of gratitude. We also have in North America Harry Wolff. Now, Harry Wolff was an American-born German. He got a hold of Joseph Deck's book on iridology in German and read it and studied it and went, oh, this is such good stuff, right? And then Bill Cardona, who at the time was a registered pharmacist, connected with Harry Wolff, and they began teaching constitutional iridology anywhere they could find a place. Bill Cardona later on went on to become a naturopath, and he is my first constitutional instructor, a dear and valued mentor and colleague and friend. So why does iridology work? How does it work? When we look at the eyes and the brain, the eyes are the largest neural receptors in your body. They are actually the end of a nerve. They are the receptor end of a nerve. We know the iris itself has an additional 28,000 nerve endings in it. We're not sure exactly what they're all there for. We also know that the eye develops embryologically at the same time that the nervous system does. So, because it is a part of the nervous system, right? The eye is a part of the nervous system. And so what that means is if there is a challenge in the body, that the brain knows about. And of course, the brain knows all the challenges in the body. It knows where all the genetic ups and downs are. Then it shows up in the iris because the eyeball is developing at the exact same time the rest of the brain is developing. It's important to remember that the challenges or the markings we see in the iris do not guarantee a problem. They simply show us where the inherent potentials are. All right. Is this making sense so far? If this is working for you, I want to see a yes in the comments box, please. Is this working for you? Yes or no? We're going to continue on with our presentation while you're typing that in. So I just want to plant this little seed that the next go round of Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for holistic health practitioners is starting on September 9th, and the course is open for registration now. I limit my class to no more than 10 students. So when that fills up, there will be a wait list created. We are doing a final information session for this next week on Thursday, September 2nd at 12 noon Mountain Time. So today we started this presentation at 11 Mountain Time. So that gives you an idea of when the webinar will be. And this will give you all the ins and outs, ups and downs, all the details you need to decide to take this course. Now I'm going to post the URL. There we go. So I've just posted that URL in the chat box for those of you who are with me in the webinar. So if you'd like to join us, you can go ahead and get registered for that. So what can iridology tell us? Let's do some quick iris analyses here so you can see how this actually works in a clinical setting. Remember, we never diagnose, we never prescribe, we assess and we recommend. So this is a client today who came to me. Her complaint was high stress and she wanted to lose some weight. The information from her doctor was that she had elevated A1C and elevated cholesterol. So she was type 2, that means that she was type 2 diabetic and she had cholesterol issues. And so what we know first is that her iris type is biliary. And being biliary, we know that the liver is going to be one of the things we want to focus on. It's one of the things we're going to really want to support. We also see from these marks that are coming around the edge of the eye that this person spends a lot of time reacting in the sympathetic nervous system. So she's fight, flight, or freeze. She's always ready for the next crisis to happen, always on that edge. She's also, because of what we see in her eye and the fact that she's biliary, she's very prone to having her liver run the show. Now that may show up, and this is where you need to know your anatomy and physiology. With the liver's out of balance, it may show up as immune system issues. It may show up as blood symptoms. It might show up as energy issues. She might have allergies. She might have hormonal issues. She might have digestive issues. And so this is where we are not going to be telling the client what is wrong. We're going to take their symptoms, look at the eyes, and then we are going to ask questions. Another thing that we notice here is that she has some dark brown pigments. Are you familiar with something called the MTHFR defect? MTHFR defect. This is something that is fairly new for research within the last 7 or 8 years. And it is a situation where the liver cannot properly methylate B vitamins. What that means is that in spite of this person lives in a stress zone, so she burns through her B vitamins very, very quickly, but her liver is not able to handle getting the Bs ready for her to use. And so that can lead to anxiety. It can lead to feeling stress acutely, easily feeling overwhelmed. And we need to make sure that we are addressing that. We also see in the nutritive zone that there are indications here that she may not digest as well as we'd like her to. And it's the liver that is likely impacting her ability to digest foods in the GI tract. So from your anatomy and physiology training, you should be going click, 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 and making all kinds of connections, connecting liver and digestion. So she, again, she lives in that constant stress state. And the problem is stress never makes anything better. It never does. She's got orange colors in her eyes, which also suggests pancreatic. She's got the brown that suggests liver. We see that she's got some congested blood vessels running parallel to the edge of the eye. This suggests congestion in the circulatory system. We might be from what we see here and from some things that we see from the white, sort of the white film that's around the edge of her eye, we might be suspecting some potential for arterial blockages. Now, we aren't able to say she is doing that, but we want to ask those questions. Is there a personal history of liver issues? Is there a personal history of blood disorders? Is there a personal history of immune? Is there a family or personal history of cardiovascular, especially vascular? So what did we do for her? We suggested that she should increase her leafy greens. Now, they contain the B vitamins in the right format, in the methylated format. We had her add protein to every meal because she was pretty carb heavy in her eating. And we also increased her low carb vegetables and we cut out refined sugars of all kinds. So we didn't do a massive overhaul, had her add the leafy greens, increase her low carb vegetables, and get rid of refined sugars. That's not really a lot of work. She has a nutrition background, so she understood that. We also added to her omega-3. We added a berberine product for the insulin resistance. We added garden essence enzymes, which is a specific digestive product that supports the liver and the GI tract. She really got on board. She did such a good job. 3 months later, her numbers were all normal and she lost 20 pounds just with those simple changes. She was ecstatic. I was elated. It was a beautiful thing. Then stress hit. She fell off the program. Her numbers all reverted back to what they were because she was earning those numbers. And then about a year later, she had a massive heart attack. Now, fortunately, she got to the hospital very quickly. There's no residual damage. She's back on track. She's doing quite well. And now we are working to get all of her numbers back down and to really support her heart. So with constitutional iridology, again, I couldn't look at this and say, oh, you're headed for a heart attack. But I could see the indicators that she was likely putting plaque down in her arteries. There was likely some congestion happening in the circulatory system, that this was likely coming because her liver wasn't handling the foods she was eating very well. And it led to asking questions and building a program, which if she had stayed on it, if life hadn't happened to her, she may not have had that heart attack. Did you notice through all of that, I never said this person is toxic, this person needs to cleanse. I never said the person has a congested liver that we need to cleanse out. I never said these eyes look unhealthy. We can't actually know those things. We can only see tendencies, genetic predispositions. And so that's why we use the eyes to ask questions. Now, can you see how this kind of an assessment could be helpful for you in your clinical work with your clients? How it could maybe help you do a better job. You're probably doing a great job already, but an even better, more laser focused job of helping them. This is another client of mine. These are what we call lymphatic eyes. And she is also what we call polyglandular and anxiety tetanic. So when we look at this and we see polyglandular We see anxiety tetanic. We know that she is going to be, again, prone to internalizing her stress and burning through her B vitamins very quickly. We know that she is also prone to hormone imbalances, which is interesting because she is trying to get pregnant and not having any luck. The tight collarette teaches us about her GI tract and especially her intestinal tract, and it suggests that she is predisposed to constipation and poor energy production. But we never tell the client, oh my goodness, you must be constipated, your energy must be awful. We always ask, and we ask it in a way that doesn't put words in their mouth. So this would be, tell me about your bowel movements. How often do you have a bowel movement? And what is the texture and the consistency of the bowel movement? Do you ever see undigested food or anything in your bowel movements that you think doesn't belong there? Right. And so we ask open-ended questions to get them to give us information without us coloring their answer for them. We also know, again, that where she's prone to hormones being out of whack. We've done some basal body temperature charting with her, and her BBTs tend to be on the low side in the follicular phase, which again supports the idea that she probably is slightly hypothyroid. Now, she has a really amazing diet. Like, I want to live with her. Her diet is that clean. She did have a miscarriage about a year ago and a chemical pregnancy shortly thereafter, which was not a lot of fun for her to go through. We do want to make sure that she stays physically active, which she does, and that her diet stays clean, which she really works at that. She is at an optimal weight and she's very active. Her eyes, again, suggest that she is a little bit predisposed to some leaky gut. Now, we can't say you have leaky gut, but we can ask if anyone's ever suggested that to her. We can ask if she has any of the symptoms of leaky gut, which could be anything from inflammation to immune issues and so on. We also notice as we look in this area, again, from the edge of the inner edge of the iris to this ring that comes around here, that it looks a little bit jagged and it looks dull. It's a grayish color. And that suggests that she may not be able to digest her protein as well as we'd like her to. So we need to make sure that whatever we do with protein in her recommendations, we are giving her support with that. She's got a bit of orange, pale orange showing up, and this is telling us pancreas may want to be out of balance, which actually goes with being polyglandular. But again, she's got a good diet and a good lifestyle, and her pancreas is behaving itself. So we're not going to worry about that. She's predisposed to it, but it's not a current problem for her. When we look at the ovarian reaction fields, what we see here is most interesting. We see that she's got fibers that are running through these at strange angles, and that could be a part of what's going on with her inability to get pregnant. Could be that her ovaries don't like their job very well. We can't straighten out those fibers, but with enough hard work, we may be able to get the ovaries to function well enough for long enough for her to conceive. We always blend what we see in the eyes with the client's goals, with their current concerns, with their diet, with their lifestyle, with everything we learn about the client as we are doing that appointment. This is why I never do an iris analysis without a consultation with the client. So we are using Prenatal Pro, which is an amazingly wonderful prenatal vitamin. And we are using methylated Bs with her because she also has a little brown pigment down here. We are using a little extra methylated folate with her as well. We are giving her some nerve nutrients, and we are giving her N-acetylcysteine to support the liver. We suggested that she gets increase her healthy proteins, wild fish, wild game, maybe some bison, and her healthy fats. And we gave her some support for digesting the proteins especially. In order to do this well, again, we have to understand the client's health concerns, what their goals are, what their diet and lifestyle are like. And then we can start to look at the eyes and tie in what we see with where we need to go and with what the client's already doing. it would be a waste of time for me to take this client and outline in great detail everything that a good diet includes, because when I asked her, walk me through a normal day of food, and I wrote down what she's eating, it's like, yeah, she doesn't need nutrition education. She's doing just fine there. Let's focus on what she actually needs. This is a woman, mid-50s. She came to me with hot flashes, which she really wanted to get rid of. Sure, her diet was really quite good as well. And there was only one little thing, and we'll talk about what that thing was. And she has a very holistic lifestyle. She's very aware of self-care, of being physically active, of having some meditation time, but she wanted to get rid of hot flashes. So when I look at her eyes and I saw these rings the rings that are going around, I had to ask her about her nervous system and ask her about stress. And especially stress as it relates to hot flashes. Does stress trigger hot flashes for her? And the answer was absolutely yes, which I knew it would be. And then we needed to talk about her liver, because she's got these beautiful brown eyes. And that always is going to point us back to liver and blood. And so I asked her about any issues with digesting fats. Did she ever feel nauseous after eating fats? Was there ever fat or grease in the toilet when she had a bowel movement? And she was fine on all counts. But I asked her then if she has an issue with holding a grudge or holding on to being angry. And she said she used to, but she's a psychologist. She's done a ton of work and has worked through that to now she knows how to let it go. In her diet, there was only one thing that was off, and that's that she drinks a cup of Turkish coffee every day. Now, I don't drink coffee. I have no idea what Turkish coffee is and what, but I know that coffee and caffeine can trigger hot flashes. And so I asked her if she would do an experiment with giving up the coffee for 10 days. That was the only thing she needed to change in her diet. Seriously, her diet was that good. When she came back to see me, she said, yeah, the getting rid of the coffee took away the hot flashes. So that was really, really brilliant. Now, I would have recommended that anyways, because that's just one of the things that I do. But the fact that she has brown eyes and contraction furrows and this dark pigment here made me realize that the coffee would never, ever be a good thing for her. So as we're going through this, are you seeing what impact this can have in your practice? That is exactly how long an iris analysis should take. It shouldn't take hours and hours. And did you notice that I didn't focus on every single little mark in here? Because not all of them are relevant to what the client needs. We focus on the things that our client needs, not everything we see. So how do we use iridology? We use iridology to gain insight, to guide our questions, to create rapport, to inform our recommendations. We create doable sequences of recommendations to enhance our client success. We stay laser focused. They don't need to know everything we know. They only really want to know what is the next thing they need to do. And that's as much as we need to give them in each appointment. What is the next thing? Maybe 2 very small things they need to do so that they can actually do them and be successful. This is all the kind of things that I teach in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment course. We don't just teach iridology. I teach how to use it. We practice how to use it. Again, we use it to gain insight, to guide our questions, to create rapport, to inform our recommendations, and to create doable sequences of recommendations that enhance our client's success. The more success your clients have, the more they want to come back to you when they've got a problem. The less success they have, the more they just want to walk away and never see you again. Does that make sense? So little tiny bit of information about the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course that is coming up. This is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, and naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. And I teach this so that you can stop working unpaid overtime. Too many people, too many practitioners see the client, go off and spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours of their own time creating a program to bring back to the client in a subsequent appointment. But the practitioner's not getting paid for the hours they're spending creating that program, and that's not very helpful. So we want you to be able to create the program right when you're with your client. No more unpaid overtime. If you can create a program in your paid sessions and keep your sessions in their time limit, the program will not be overwhelming for your client. And that's really important. That will increase long-term client compliance and long-term client retention, which is so good. So if you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you actually want to learn how the iris markers play off each other, if you want to be mentored in learning how to do this, in learning how to create programs for your clients, and if you want long-term support and mentoring after your course is finished, join me for the info session happening on September 2nd, right? And that link for that will come up on the screen in just a moment. Now, this course is designed specifically for nutrition coaches, herbalists, naturopaths, people who already have a solid foundation in anatomy and physiology. Iridology requires that background. We can't just look at a marking and say, this means XYZ, and move from there. We've got to understand how the markings play off each other. We need to understand the symptoms. We need to understand how the organs play off each other. When you've got A and P, or anatomy and physiology, under your belt, it means that we go much deeper in the course. What I have found in the past is that people who enroll in the course and they don't have a good anatomy foundation end up dropping out, because we start getting beyond what they are comprehending because they don't have anatomy under their belt. So I encourage you, make sure you've got a good solid foundation in anatomy. All right, we will also work with, in the course, we work with how to create what you do in the first appointment, what you do in the second appointment. And then, you can do a third, fourth, fifth, and sixth as well. But we really work on teaching you how to create sequential programs. So important. And in spite of what you've seen on social media, we never diagnose or prescribe, right? Constitutional iridology will help you to stay within your scope of practice. This is so important. Where I live, if I diagnose and prescribe, I can end up in jail, right? I don't know if that's how it is where you live, but we teach safety with this, right? This course is also designed to give you all of the curriculum you need to prepare you for the certification process with IPA. And as you will find if you attend the webinar with me on August the 2nd at 12 noon, you will find that we'll talk about that certification process. So if you are a herbalist, nutritionist, or naturopath, I hope you'll join me for the webinar Thursday, September 2nd at 12 noon, where we will go through all of the information you need to know. Who is this course designed for? How will it benefit you? How will it enhance your practice? How will it be good for your clients? That's really important. And what's involved in the course? What is the tuition? What are the payment plans? We'll go over all of the details. So I hope to see you then. Thank you so much for being with me today. I truly appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now.